welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa and I upload new videos every Wednesday and Friday. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe down below and hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. I make videos on teaching, lifestyle, and vlogs. Today's video is going to be the pros and cons of being a high school teacher. Quick disclaimer, I just want to say that obviously a lot of this is in my own opinion, so you are free to disagree. If you are thinking about becoming a teacher, then I think that this is a good video for you to watch because I go over a lot of things that have to do with teaching that not a lot of people know. So if you're interested in hearing about the pros and cons of being a teacher, then just keep on watching. Okay guys, so I have 9 pros and 9 cons that I want to go over today, and I'm gonna go back and forth. So I'm gonna say 1 pro and then 1 con, just because I want to keep it even and I don't want it to, you know, like be all pros or all cons. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. And also I just want to say that some of these I probably can talk about for a really long time, but I'm gonna try to keep it pretty short and to the point, just because I don't want this video to be, you know, an hour long. So the first pro that I have down is a schedule. So that is something that is very nice when you're a teacher. So you have weekends off, obviously. Most schools are Monday through Friday. I know that there are some schools, maybe privates or charters, that do 4-day school weeks. My school where I work, we teach classes Monday through Thursday, and then Friday I don't teach classes. I still go to work, but that's a day for students to come in and make up, or we have like PDs that day. Fridays are a little bit different every week. A lot of the times it's time for me to get lesson plans done or to get caught up on grading. So I really enjoy having no class on Friday because it gives me a lot of time to get caught up. But obviously not all schools are like that. But I believe that most schools are weekends off, so that's really nice. Holidays are off and they're paid holidays, so even when you have, you know, a week off for Thanksgiving, you're still getting paid, or you have the 2 weeks off in the winter time, you're still getting paid. Springtime as well. I believe the only break that is not paid in most cases is summer break. But that really depends on you as a teacher. So I know a lot of districts do programs where you can take a little bit, or they take a little bit out of each check so that you still receive checks during the summer. And then when, you know, when that money is being taken out, you don't miss it because you never really see it, but then you're still getting checks within the summer, so it's really nice. My school's year-round, so we do get a summer break. We get around 2 weeks off, and those are paid as well. But besides that, I'm working throughout the summer, so schedule is really nice. And then day-to-day schedule can also be really nice. Most schools start around 8 a.m. and get out around 3 p.m. My work hours are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Which is a little bit longer, but I do get a 1-hour lunch. So when you work within a district, sometimes your lunch is around the same time as the students, which would be around 30 minutes. So, you know, they obviously would get out of work earlier than I do. I have a 1-hour lunch, which is nice. It's a lot of time to get things done. But yeah, so schedule is definitely a pro, you know, especially when you have kids, or yeah, when you have kids, you're gonna want to, you know, have vacations just like them. Teachers definitely get those vacations, just, you know, like when students are out. Okay, so my number 1 con is school requirements. So I'm talking about before you actually become a teacher. So a lot of people don't know this. People think like, okay, you go to college, you get a bachelor's degree, and then you can become a teacher. That is not the case. And I'm talking about California. So I am from California and I do teach in California. It might be that case in other states, but here in California, there are a lot of requirements that teachers have to fulfill before they can become a full-time teacher. So when you become a teacher, you need to get a credential within the subject that you're going to teach. I am a high school English teacher, so my credential is to teach English within middle school or high school. I cannot go to an elementary school and say, okay, I want to teach 2nd grade now. Number one, I would never do that. But I can't do that because I don't have that credential. If you want to become an elementary school teacher, then you would get a credential in a multiple subject. So that means that you are prepared to teach, you know, K through 8th, I believe, or K through 7th, and you can teach multiple subjects. Some middle schools, it varies on what they want. They might want the multiple subject, they might want the single subject. So I have a single subject in English. Credential programs are usually an average about 2 years. So that's after you receive a bachelor's degree. You have to fulfill your bachelor's degree, then go into a credential program. A lot of programs are mixed and they have credential and master's within it. That's what I did. So I received a master's degree at the same time of receiving my teaching credential, which was nice. You know, it's more work, but I felt like it was worth it because I was gonna be going to school anyways. And there is also a lot of testing required along with it. So in California, it's CSETs. These are exams that test you within the subject that you are going to be teaching. So if you got your bachelor's degree in the subject that you're going to teach, you should be pretty well prepared for those tests. If you did not get your bachelor's degree in the subject that you want to teach, those tests are probably going to be very difficult. So that was the case for me. I did not get my bachelor's degree in English, so the English CSET tests were very difficult for me, but obviously I did pass them because I was able to get my credential. And a lot of people don't like to mention this, but you have to pay for those tests. Everything is, you know, paid out of your own pocket. So all the hoops that you have to jump through to become a teacher, you're paying for yourself. It's very stressful. It's a very difficult time to become a teacher. And then, you know, then the requirements is also student teaching. That's when you teach for a whole semester for free. You're not getting paid whatsoever. And you don't have time to have another job because you know, teach during the day, then you go to school at night to finish getting your credentials. So that is definitely a con, and I think that definitely scares people away, is that they don't want to jump through all those hoops to become a teacher, which I think is also good in a way, because then people that do go through all those hoops to become a teacher, it's because they really want to become a teacher. Okay, let's move on. So pro number 2, being creative. So when I talk about being creative, I mean every teacher is different for the most part, you know. So you can be creative within your classroom with your lesson plans and with the different activities that you do with your students. So it really depends on where you work and what type of curriculum that you're going to be teaching. In the state of California, we do follow Common Core standards, but that does not mean that every single teacher is teaching the same material. You know, we're teaching to accomplish each standard, but it does not mean that every 9th grade class is reading Romeo and Juliet. Even though I'm gonna make sure my students, you know, accomplish or meet the goals of each standard, I don't have to have my students read Romeo and Juliet. I actually didn't have my students read that. I knew my students were not gonna like that book, or play. So I chose a different novel that still met the standards. Why do many teachers choose to teach the same thing? Is because there's already curriculum or work made for them, so that it's easier on them to just take the work or curriculum that's already made and then teach their students. I decided that I didn't want to do that, and I was lucky enough to work at a school that let me create my own lesson plans based on the standards that needed to be met. So I was able to be very creative, choose the novels that I wanted to use for my class, choose the activities that I wanted to use for my class, make my lesson plans as creative as possible. And that's something that I really enjoy about teaching, because you make your classroom your own. And your students definitely appreciate that. You know, when they come in and they can tell that you take so much pride and you're so excited to do this activity with them because you made it up, they get excited. But if you're doing something that you don't feel very excited about, then they're not going to really be excited about it either. Okay, con number 2, cost of school. So like I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of schooling that goes with becoming a teacher, and it is very expensive. So obviously it would depend on what school you go to, what classes you have to take, what CSETs or tests that you have to fulfill, but it gets very expensive, especially when you're going into a position where you're gonna have to start paying off your school loans if you take school loans out. And there is no financial aid after getting a bachelor's degree. You know, you can get financial aid when getting a bachelor's degree, but when you get into a graduate program, and that's what the credential program would be, there's not really any like free money unless you get scholarships, which I was lucky enough to get a couple scholarships. It did not even come close to paying what I had to pay, but it did help. So, and I do appreciate that, but definitely the cost is something that is not, well, it's something to take into consideration. Okay, so let's move on to pro number 3, creating relationships. So that's something that I enjoy the most, is creating relationships with my students. You're somebody that they see every single day, or if you know, if you're like block schedule, maybe every other day, but you want to be that positive person in their life, and when you create relationships with your students, it just makes teaching 1,000 times better. And of course, you know, you might not create a relationship with every single student in your class, but it really helps to create relationships with your students, and then you really feel like you're getting through to them, not just with the material that you're teaching, you know, but just like on a day-to-day basis, having conversations with them. That's something that I really enjoy about teaching, and I think most teachers really enjoy, is getting to know their students. And that makes it a lot easier to teach when you know your audience. So I knew my students were not going to enjoy Romeo and Juliet. How did I know that? Because I got to know them. So creating relationships with your students is definitely one of the pros of being a teacher. Okay, con number 3, schedule changes. So in your day-to-day schedule, you do not have a say on what your schedule is going to be. You cannot go in to teaching and say, okay, I want to teach 4 periods of 9th grade English and then 1 period of 10th grade English, and that's what I'm teaching. It doesn't work that way. So when you get hired in a position, you are told this is what you're teaching. Okay, you might prefer to teach 9th grade over 12th grade, or you might prefer, you know, I want AP students, I don't want freshmen. You don't really get a say. You know, you might have a little bit of a say after you've been there a few years, but as a first-year teacher, you're not going to have a say in what you get to teach. I was really lucky that I really enjoyed teaching 9th grade English, and that was the classes that I was given. So I just got lucky. But I could have been given 11th grade English, which I honestly don't really enjoy because it's a lot of US history embedded in it, and I don't really enjoy that. But I could have been given it, and then I would have to, you know, learn the curriculum and make it my own. But I was really lucky that I did get 9th grade. With that being said, for people that want to be elementary school teachers, you need to know that you do not get to choose the grade you teach. You cannot apply for a job. It might even say the grade. It might even say 3rd grade elementary school or elementary job. And you apply for it, like 3rd grade is the grade I want to teach. That is the grade that I only want to teach, and perfect, I'm going to apply for that. You might get hired in that position, and then 2 weeks before school starts they say, hey, you know what, we didn't have enough 3rd graders, so we don't need another 3rd grade teacher, but we need another kindergarten teacher, so now you're teaching kindergarten. So it's either you say, okay, I want a job, I'll teach kindergarten, or you know what, I don't want to teach kindergarten, so I guess I don't have a job anymore. That's really how it is, okay? So if you want to be an elementary school teacher, you need to be prepared to teach any grade within elementary because you don't really get to choose. And unless you choose to just not have a job if they give you a grade that you don't like. But yeah, the benefit of having a single subject credential is that I can only teach English. So definitely I could teach, you know, I can be told to teach any grade level of English, but I can't be told to teach science because I don't have a credential within science, which is really good because I don't know what I would do. But yeah, so you don't really get a say in what you're teaching day to day. Also, when you start a new school year, it's not likely that you keep the same schedule. Usually it's based on enrollment. So if they don't need me as a 9th grade teacher anymore because, you know, the other 2 9th grade teachers have been here longer than I have, and now there's less 9th graders coming in, but now there's more 10th graders, they're gonna move me to 10th grade. It's basically where you're needed. So you don't get a say. You know, when you have a little bit more seniority, you might get a say, but not right away. Okay, so that was con. So pro number 4 is creating a safe and positive environment for your students. So when, you know, all of us were students at one point, and I think we can all remember that one classroom that we loved to spend time in. Either because the teacher was just really chill, or the teacher, you know, gave really good advice, or the teacher straight up just like their students, like really like spending time with their students. You can be that teacher. You can be that teacher that, you know, allows students to hang out in their classroom or come in to do extra work. Just being that teacher that students can relate to or students look up to, students like to spend time with. You're creating a safe and positive environment for them to be in. I think that is a pro in itself, just because, you know, I know that I was a student at one point and I really liked talking to those teachers or being around those teachers because I could tell that they really cared about us as students, and I like being that teacher for my students. Okay, so con number 4 is clearing credentials. So when you become a teacher, like I said earlier, you get your bachelor's degree, then you go back to school and you get a teaching credential. You can now become a full-time teacher. You can apply for jobs, become a full-time teacher. In the state of California, you still have to clear your credential. So it basically means you have to prove that you're a good teacher, which sounds like great. You know, it sounds like, well, yeah, you should have to prove that you're a good teacher, you know, because obviously there are teachers out there that don't appreciate their jobs. But it's another program that you have to, so it's basically like you're doing your credential program all over again. So you have to pay, unless the district you work for pays for it, or they have some type of program embedded within their district for new teachers. But it's just a lot of work. It usually takes about 2 years to clear your credential. After your credential is cleared, then you know you have it forever, unless you know you become a really bad teacher and you get it taken away. But yeah, it's just another process, another hoop you have to jump through, even when you already became a teacher. Okay, and then, you know, I wanted to mention that one because a lot of people don't know that. They think, you know, once they get their credential, they're like, cool, I'm gonna get a job, I'm a teacher, I'm good for life now. Like, not necessarily. You need to clear that credential before you're pretty safe. Okay, so pro number 5, making a difference. Okay, I don't think teachers get the credit that they deserve, because, you know, we're shaping young minds. Whether you're an elementary school teacher, you're a high school teacher, you're a college professor, you definitely make a difference within your students' lives. Especially if you want to. You know, there are some teachers that are strictly about the material, and that's it. But there are a lot of teachers out there that are very passionate about shaping young minds and preparing these students to be, you know, citizens or just people out in society. Teaching your students how to appreciate themselves and love themselves. That is a con in itself. I mean, I'm sorry, a pro in itself, just because, you know, it's a pro and it's scary because, you know, there are days where I'm just not feeling my best. But I think it's important to share those things with your students because they need to know that, you know, you're not a perfect person. You know, you're a person, you're a human being just like them. And you're doing good with your life, and you became successful, you got a career, and you want to show your students that they can do the same. I really like working with students that maybe struggle a little bit more, maybe come from an area that's a little rough around the edges, because I can relate to that, and I feel that I make a difference with those students because I understand them and I don't judge them. So yeah, making a difference is definitely a pro, becoming a teacher. Okay, so number 5 for cons is job security. So the first couple years of being a teacher, you do not have a lot of job security, especially if you're working within a public school. So until you get tenure, which is after you clear your credential and you've worked as a teacher for a couple years, you're granted tenure. It doesn't mean it's not 10 years. You don't have to be a teacher for 10 years. It's 10 years. Then you have more job security and usually have a union to back you up if you ever need it. But your first couple of years you don't have that, and it's scary. It's definitely scary because you can be a teacher and usually nowadays it's like a 1-year contract, and you don't know if you're going to be teaching at that school or even in that district the next school year unless you're needed. So that's really scary. I will say that a few years ago it was pretty bad because there was just like an abundance of teachers and they weren't needed as much. It's gotten a lot better. Definitely a lot less teachers are losing their jobs. So if you're scared to become a teacher because you think that you're not going to get a job, I don't think that should really scare you away. It's a lot better now, and yeah, you might not work in the same district or the district that you want right away, but I do think that there are a lot of teaching positions out there if you're not somebody who's extremely picky about where they want to work. Okay, so pro number 6 is being a role model. So that's just an awesome position to be in when you have students that look up to you. You know, it's important that you are professional and you are a really good role model for them. But it just feels really great when you have students that are, you know, open up to you and feel like you're that person that they can talk to and seek advice from. That's a really great feeling, and that comes with getting to know your students and letting them get to know you. That is so important. I can't stress that enough. If you don't let your students get to know you, if you're a closed book and you're just strictly about the material, the students are really not going to open up to you because you don't open up to them. So I enjoy letting my students get to know me. I'm an open book when it comes to speaking with my students because I know they really enjoy that. Even if they think I'm lame or I'm weird and they're like, I know that they like knowing about my life and like knowing about my past or present, and then it makes them more comfortable in my classroom and it makes them want to share as well. So it creates a positive environment. Okay, con number 6 is evaluations. So when you're a teacher, you are evaluated by administration, which in my eyes is not a bad thing, okay? If you're doing your job, there should be no reason why you should fear evaluations. And I don't fear evaluations, but I do think that they're not perfect. So, I mean, of course, nothing's going to be perfect, but a teacher can get evaluated by an administrator basically at any time, and if they come in on a day where you're just maybe not fully prepared, or it's just an off day in your classroom, because you're gonna have those, they might not see your best stuff, you know, and you might get an evaluation that is not the best. just because that day was not the best in general. And that's not the best, just because, you know, oh man, every other day is great in here. You should see the students collaborating and working with one another and really responding to the lessons that I'm presenting. But that administrator decided to come in on a day where it just didn't show that. So those aren't the best. And I know a lot of teachers that get really nervous because it depends on where you're at. But an administrator might be looking for something that might not be as important to you as it is to them. Number 7 is pay. So a lot of people think that teachers don't make any money, which, you know, at the beginning it feels that way, especially because you have to pay back so much in loans for all the school that you did to become a teacher. But it does not mean that you can't make a good amount of money as a teacher. The more schooling that you have and the more time you have as a teacher, the more pay you get, okay? Which it could be a very comfortable salary, especially if you're somebody who is just smart with their money. So do I think that teachers deserve to be paid more? Definitely. But I do think that there are opportunities for you to make a very comfortable salary as a teacher. Okay, number 7 on cons, demanding parents. Again, I think this has a lot to do with where you work. So you should really definitely look into the district or area that you're applying for before you apply, because if you're somebody who doesn't like to please parents, then you probably shouldn't work in a high-income private school, okay? Like me, I'm not somebody who likes to please parents. So I knew that I'm not going to apply to those districts or those schools, because that's just not me. I'm more about connecting with my students and, you know, teaching my students instead of pleasing parents. So that's a con. That's all I'm going to say about that. Number 8 for pro is advancement opportunities. So there are definitely a lot of advancement opportunities when it comes to education. So you might go to school to become a teacher, and you might teach for a few years and then decide, you know what, I think I'm ready to move on. There are different positions within education that you can move to, especially within large districts. So that is something to look into if you want to become a teacher. If you become a teacher at 24 years old, at 44, you know, you're not ready to retire yet, but you're done teaching, and it's okay to be that person to say, you know what, I'm done. I've hit my limits on teaching, and I think that's a beautiful thing, to be able to say I'm ready to move on. You're only helping out the students that you would be teaching if you decide to move on. And I think a lot of teachers need to recognize that, because there are other positions that you can fulfill within a school district, you know, with your teaching credential. Some might require you to go back to school to maybe get a master's degree or a different type of credential, and that's okay. I think that's a great thing to do if you feel like you're done with teaching, is just to move on and do something else. You can always move up, maybe go to administration, and they make a pretty penny, you know, they make a comfortable salary. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities to advance within education. Okay, so number 8 for cons is standardized testing. So I can't tell you how much I disagree with standardized testing. And you know, again, I'm just gonna say that's my opinion. So if you're somebody who feels that standardized testing is the best thing that ever happened to education, then that's fine. We'll just agree to disagree. But I would definitely not like to work in a setting that was so demanding on improving standardized test scores. And that's seen a lot within education now. I feel I'm lucky to work at a school that recognizes that standardized testing does not measure equally every student. So if I think you just have to look into where you're gonna work. If their main focus is standardized testing and you're somebody like me who does not feel the same way, then maybe you don't want to work there. But if you know, if you're like, no, I think that's a good thing in education and we need it, then fine. But for me, that's a con, in my opinion. Number 9 for pros, which will be the last pro, is every day is different. So, and you can make every day different as a teacher. You have that power in your classroom to make every day different. Of course, routines are helpful, but your lessons do not need to be the same every single day. That's boring for you, and that's definitely boring for your students. But if you're creative with your lesson plans, you can make every single day different while still following a routine. And it just makes for a fun environment. And even if you have a routine that you follow every single day, trust me, every day is going to be different because your students are not going to be on the same page or be the same student every single day. That's the one thing I really love about teaching high school, is that every day is different because my students come in with different attitudes and different moods every single day. And sometimes it's draining, sometimes it's like, whoa, I can't keep up. But it definitely keeps me on my toes, and it just makes every day enjoyable. And then number 9 is kind of a twofer for cons. So no, it's just one thing. I'll say it the way I wrote down my note. I put old teachers. I'm not saying that if you're old and you're a teacher, I don't like you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about, and they could be young, doesn't really have to do with age. I'm talking about teachers who don't like change, and teachers who have a negative attitude about education, and you know, their vibe is just bad. I can't. I went to school for a long time to become a teacher. I'm happy to be a teacher. I enjoy my students, and of course there are things, you know, I had 9 cons. There are things that I don't like about education, or I don't like about being a teacher, but it's still something that I love to do. And when speaking to teachers that hate it, you know, I know you guys know this. There's teachers out there that just don't like their jobs anymore. It's just draining for me. Like I just can't. Like I don't want that negative vibe, you know, on me. So I just won't talk to those teachers. I'm that teacher that doesn't really like eat lunch like in a teacher's lounge and stuff. Of course I have coworkers that are my friends, or coworkers that I eat lunch with, but I don't want to associate or be around teachers who don't appreciate their job anymore, or just don't like their job anymore. So yeah, that's definitely a con. And you're gonna have, you know, older teachers tell you as the new teacher, that's not the way we do it here, or you need to be doing this. And just, you know, take everything with a grain of salt and just be your own person. You know, you got that job for a reason. You went to school, you know, probably a lot more recently than they did. You learned a lot more. Maybe you're more advanced like in technology or something, and they hate it, so they're gonna be negative about it. Just be your own person as a teacher. Be your own person, and don't let negative energy affect your teaching, because that's just not fair for your students. But those were all my pros and cons. I would also like to say that teaching is a profession that when you leave, you know, at the end of the day, you're most likely taking work home. Unless you're somebody like me. I don't like to take work home. I like to get there early and do work. You know, I'm a morning person, so I'll do work before school starts, so that at the end of the day, I might stay a little bit longer and then leave, but not take it home. But teaching is definitely, when you're a teacher, your students and your job is on your mind, you know, even when you leave. So if you want a job that, you know, when time's up at the end of the day, you have nothing to do with it, teaching's not it. So just be prepared for that. Does not mean that it's to me, in my opinion, still a great job. But yeah, that's one thing that, you know, some people they might think, oh, the schedule's great, so I'm gonna go for that because of the schedule. Yeah, the schedule is great, but it does not mean that you're not gonna be doing work at home or coming in early or staying late, because you just have to get it done. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about becoming a teacher, it could be anything about the schooling, what your first year of teaching is like, how to clear your credential, anything, studying for CSETs. If you're a future teacher, please leave a comment down below. I'm really happy to help. If I offended anybody in this video, I'm so sorry. Like I said at the beginning, these are just my opinions. If I said something that you are unsure about, look it up, or, you know, ask me if you have a question, just because I know some people that are thinking about going into teaching might not know a lot of this stuff. And sometimes you don't even go over this stuff in your credential program. So if you never even worked in a school and you get your credential, you're gonna be shocked when you get your first teaching job. So like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.